Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Sister Akusiamino. The first time I appeared on a program with her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. History has been made.
Yeah. Today.
Good morning,
Yeah, I was just wondering. I thought this was a program
for all female.
Yes. I was just wondering why you were pairing me with Akusia.
Yes. Some small slight changes.
Okay.
Yeah, slight changes.
Okay.
You have no idea. Akusia is very happy to have you. You know.
Oh, thank you, Akusia.
Yes,
thank
to have
you
you on the show.
Now, you see, this conversation needs to be interrogated carefully.
Right.
And as politicians, we have to be honest with our interrogations. We have to understand the issues, examine the facts surrounding the matter, the reasoning behind all this hullabaloo, and then probably we can draw our own conclusions.
Right.
Now, it is very important that when we are talking about matters that concern the nation, we do it in a dispassionate manner, because the amounts involved will affect all of us as citizens of this country. And so everybody should be interested. And that's why that was what aroused my interest. Now, but Afenyo-Markin should not be the first to say that there have been personal attacks. He should not be. And I've constantly told him, when we were in parliament together, that he should always try to take emotions out of his duties as a parliamentarian, and particularly as a leader.
Okay.
Because what emotions do is that they becloud thinking. Now, so when I listened to his press conference on this 22 billion, I thought something was fundamentally wrong.
Right.
If you are talking about defamation, the defamation and track of defamation started with that press conference. One, in that press conference, I was left in no doubt that minority leader had fixed the blame for the 22 billion cedis on Sami Gyamfi. I had no doubt about that. In fact, he had even gone ahead to say that Sami Gyamfi was involved in a crime. That was the reasoning. And that in the event of a change of government, he could not even imagine the bail conditions which Sami Gyamfi will have to meet to be able to gain his temporary freedom. That is an imputation of crime. And it's defamatory. It's actionable per se. You do not need to prove harm. So, probably we have got defamation and counter-defamation. But if you are taking it from that angle, because no one has the right to label another person a criminal without first establishing the crime that has been committed, and then reporting the matter to the police for investigations. To call him a criminal at a press conference, establish yourself as an investigative body, and come to the conclusion that in the event of a change in government, you cannot even contemplate how much bail conditions will be required and whether Sami Gyamfi will be able to meet those bail conditions was irresponsible, to say the least. And probably, that's what brought about this whole counter narrative. And let me hasten to add, as somebody who has contributed to the governance of this country, who has been entrusted with the mandate.
But before you go ahead, Honorable, so the minority leader himself actually clarified that statement that you just made, which, per your interpretation and understanding, he was impugning criminality.
Yes, imputation of crime.
Okay. Now, this is what he said. He said the comment was not directed at any particular individual or meant to suggest that Gold Board official had committed a crime. Now, speaking on Good Evening Ghana, Markin explains that he was drawing attention to the treatment of some former government officials who are currently facing investigations over alleged financial losses to the state. He said, you see, I said it on a lighter note, but I also mean it. Let me explain again. We are dealing with losses. Once the state incurs a loss in implementing a policy, it is a financial loss to the state, and somebody would have to be responsible for decisions taken thereto. Does that change your position?
He said he said it in the gist.
Okay.
He said it on a lighter note.
Right.
But he said it. And we are not Humpty Dumpty. The minority leader is not a Humpty Dumpty.
Right.
When he speaks, we are entitled to interpret what he has said. Okay?
Right.
And so, when he spoke, and I'm happy that he's addressed that part. Because as a lawyer, that was that part that troubled me the most. Because there's a constitutional presumption to innocence. It's a constitutional presumption.
Until proven guilty.
Until proven guilty. Now, in that statement, it came across to me as if the CEO of Goldboard has done something so terrible, and that the 22 billion was his handiwork, that he was solely responsible. In fact, in that press statement, he never mentioned the Bank of Ghana. And that, as if he was solely responsible, and that he will pay for it. Leaders don't speak that way.
Okay.
In fact, responsible leaders do not speak that way. You have to always respect the constitutional right of citizens of this country to be presumed innocent until found guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction.
Okay.
So what are the issues? The issues are these. Somewhere in 2021, the NPP administration, faced with depleting foreign reserves, the lack of forex for purchases of oil, and the wobbling economy, decided to introduce a policy, and that was a domestic gold purchase program. This policy is not akin, or was not the first time such a policy was being introduced by the central bank of the country. Now the policy stood on two legs. One, to accumulate so much gold and trade that gold for oil, because we're finding it difficult coming by forex to buy oil. The second, our reserves were running low, and so the import cover for this country was becoming difficult. And so you needed to wrap up the reserves. So this policy was introduced.
Right.
Aggregate, and it is, the United Nations recognizes our sovereignty, the universal sovereignty over our natural resources. So we can decide to do what we please within our boundaries with our natural resources. At that time, there was no attempt to limit the purchase of our gold from the small-scale mining sector to only the PMMC. It was still opened to other traders. But the Bank of Ghana could only buy the gold from PMMC. So if you were even in the small-scale mining sector and you got gold, you needed to deal with PMMC if you wanted to take advantage of the DGPP, Domestic Gold Purchase Program. Now, NDC appreciated the policy and said for the policy to be effective, we needed to close the loopholes, stem smuggling, the tide of smuggling, and make the gold board the sole institution to purchase gold won in the small-scale mining sector.
Right.
So, for the purposes of the domestic gold purchase program, the policy cost and the policy design and cost was always borne by the bank of Ghana? How was the Bank of Ghana to come into Forex? And what cost were they to pay to get that Forex? To be able to meet the legitimate and reasonable expectations of Ghanaians. Which were these legitimate expectations? That we continue to have fuel at our filling stations.
Right.
That we are not, we are able to import things that we want into this country. That our supermarkets do not run dry. This was a legitimate government is voted into office to do that. So we concede that they are doing that was to prevent us seeing queues forming at our filling stations and also our supermarkets running dry, the shelves of our supermarket running dry. But that policy had a cost. And that is the honesty I'm talking about in discussing matters of national importance.
Right.
So in 2022, there was a cost. In 2023, there was a cost. In 2024, there was a cost. In 2025, there has been a cost. But the dishonesty here is that in 2024, about $400 million was the policy cost for the implementation of the domestic gold purchase program. Umar, nobody attributed that cost to PMMC. Nobody.
But it's not 22 billion cities.
Nobody. Well, cost is cost.
Of course, I get it.
Cost is
I
cost.
think perhaps it's the quantum.
Cost is cost.
Okay, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to be honest about it. Now, so if we are interested in interrogating the policy design, fair game. Fair game. If we are interested in interrogating the losses that accrue to this country through the gold for oil program, fair game. But you don't approve it and reprove it. Now, so NDC came into office in 2025, decided that we needed to scale up the program. We needed to maximize the benefit and close all the loopholes. We are still struggling because they are arresting people here and there trying to smuggle gold, and scaled up the program. Gold Board, at all material times like PMMC, has been a broker. Gold Board or PMMC has never been the implementer of the domestic gold purchase program. Never, never. The price per kilo and Bank of Ghana doesn't buy the gold on discretionary basis. And again, let me roll back. And Afenyo-Markin said that he said it on a lifetime note. How do you grant a press conference on the dealings of Gold Board and ask a rhetoric question? Why not to gold Eboka?
Yeah.
Again, it's honesty. Gold Board doesn't sell gold. Gold Board doesn't do that. So to conclude his accusation of criminality against the CEO of Gold Board, he put in the rhetoric question to sway the minds of Ghanaians towards an act which he believes, in his view, is criminal in nature. The role of Gold Board, presently within the scheme of things, is an aggregator. When Gold Board aggregates the gold from the small-scale mining sector, sells that gold to the Bank of Ghana on agreed price. That agreement, that price per kilo, was determined before Gold Board was established. That price per kilo was determined by Gold Board and PMMC and reduced to an agreement. It's an agreement regulating the relationship between Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana. The price per kilo was fixed by that agreement. The commissions and assayers fees were determined by that agreement during the time of the MPP. Gold Board only inherited the liabilities and assets, or assets and liabilities of the PMMC. So you see where the propaganda comes in. That's where the propaganda comes in. When PMMC sold gold to Bank of Ghana, and Bank of Ghana traded the gold and ran a loss of about $400 million, no one said. But what is more troubling to me is that Afenyo-Markin was part of the MPs who passed the Gold Board Act. And in the Gold Board Act, there's a requirement of auditing of the activities of Gold Board. That audit is to be undertaken by the Auditor General. So all the books of gold, value books of Gold Board, are made available to the Auditor General at the end of the year for the purposes of determining whether the activities of Gold Board were in consonance with the law. And that's the law, including the law on PPA, the law on purchase, everything. And whether Gold Board made profit or loss. That document will be, if it's not already in Parliament, it's supposed to be in Parliament for the information of members of Parliament. And if there is wrongdoing detected in the report, it will be a subject matter of interrogation by the Public Accounts Committee, because the resources of Gold Board are public resources. The Bank of Ghana is another legal entity. It uses public resources. It was not set up for trading purposes. It's not a commercial bank. But because it uses public resources, the Bank of Ghana Act requires that at the end of every year, they submit their operations for auditing. Now, if you take the Gold Board audit report, it doesn't record the $22 billion.
Right.
The $1.7 billion loss, or 22 billion cedis loss. It doesn't. In fact, it records a profit. So, another legal matter that Afenyo-Markin and the minority will have to answer is whether or not it's right, logical, legal to transposition a loss of one legal entity onto another.
Right.
Can you hold the Gold Board vicariously responsible for the loss of the Bank of Ghana? Can you do that?
Right.
That is why I've said that as politicians, as leaders, as people who are in the public space, in communicating to us, we need always to exercise some level of circumspection.
Right.
And not treat us as if we are nitwits. We don't understand what is happening.
Okay.
Now, let me conclude by saying, two persons, and consequent upon the revelation of Sami Gyamfi in his press statement or press encounter, and subsequently on Newsfire, or two persons, two Ghanaian citizens have petitioned the Speaker, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the IGP, and the CEO, I think, to interrogate this allegation of extortion and attempted corruption.
I think it's Solomon Owusu.
Solomon Owusu and that lawyer.
Lawyer Apia Dankwa. Of the UP. Of the UP
tradition.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it.
And I think that is appropriate.
Okay.
Why do I think it's appropriate? it talks to the fidelity of government. It speaks to the legitimacy of representation. Why do I say so? We entrust people with our mandate to help run this country in a way that inures to the benefits and welfare of the people of this country. Article 1 of the Constitution. That's why we give parliamentarians the mandate as our direct representatives to ensure that they not only hold governments in check, but they also ensure that public resources are not dissipated recklessly.
Right.
That's why they have to approve of a budget of the Republic and ensure that what is contained in the budget is used for purposes for which it was allocated.
Okay.
Now, if an allegation of this nature that a public officer, a representative of the people, engrossed the dereliction of his duty to hold public officers to account, has turned the mandate, which was intended for public service,
Right.
into personal service, then the issue of fidelity of government, the issue of legitimacy of representation,
Right.
then comes to play.
Okay.
Because the public resource, and I've had many people comment, if you are of the view that 22 billion is public resources, and this 22 billion could have been used for things, and I've heard others talk about how many roads, kilometers of roads you could do, how many Agenda 111 hospitals it can complete.
Opportunity cost, basically.
Opportunity cost
Yes.
of that. But that's not even opportunity cost. It just means that we have lost that money.
Well, what we could have used the money to do. Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
what
we
an
have lost that
opportunity cost,
money.
yes.
And then, as a public officer, a representative of the people,
Yes.
you're not interested in digging deep to find how the money was lost, whether it was legitimate, whether the cost-benefit analysis of the program, supported the loss, and whether we were getting benefit out of the program and not visiting hardship on the people of this country. You go to convert that public service into a private service by saying that, well, even though 22 billion has been lost, if you give me so much, I will keep my mouth shut.
Yes.
That's serious.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, that's serious. That's serious. Whatever happens, that's serious.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. As a public officer and as a representative of the people, you can't do that.
Okay. Well, you and I are not privy to
No.
to the
If you
nature
do
of
that, I'm not saying that.
supposed-
I'm not saying that he did that.
Okay.
That's why I'm supporting the
Yes.
investigation.
All right.
That's why I'm supporting. In fact, he should also be prepared to submit himself for investigation.
Okay.
In fact, Sami Jaffy should bring that as a person who is interested in governance. He should produce the evidence. Okay? And to get Ghanaians to understand that we cannot trade with the people's mandate. We can't.
The Honorable Member of Parliament says it's a distraction.
What's a distraction?
He's not interested.
An allegation of extortion is a distraction.
Yeah, he says a distraction. He was focused
Focus on what?
on getting Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana to answer that basic question. How did we lose 22 billion? That's what he's more interested in. He's not interested in this going to court and things like that. He's not
But
interested.
if he's not interested, I will urge the Parliament and the Serious Fraud Office to be interested in this matter. Because it strikes at the heart of government.
Okay. All right.
Or governance in this country.
Okay. Let me bring in
Because we offer ourselves to serve the country, to serve the people of this country. That it will be wrong, totally wrong, to subordinate the people's interests to your personal interests. It will be totally wrong.
All right.
It will be unethical.
Okay. Now, before I bring in Akosia, apparently my attention has been drawn by my producer to a statement. No, just a second, I beg you. A statement by Afenyo-Markin himself. And apparently he put it out on Facebook, And also Samuel Brian Bobby, my very good friend, and Audu Mahama of the Custodian. They've all drawn my attention to a statement which Alexander Afenyo-Markin has issued on his Facebook wall. So he says, myjoyonline.com, stop the misinformation, stop the misinformation, stop the misinformation. Your report that I have been summoned is untrue. On the contrary, ahead of the reconvening of Parliament, I've summoned my colleagues for our caucus meetings, as is routinely done ahead of every meeting of Parliament, to strategize and coordinate our parliamentary business. This is a regular practice of the caucus and should not be misrepresented as anything else. And he continues to say that, he says that pull down the misinformation on your website and correct the record. So I'm sure that you want to take it from there. I go there. Any questions? Because she says so. She should go and ask Enoforata where our DDP money is, if she can find him. Just last week, Atufosin paid another 10.4 billion of the losses you made to ordinary people who took the chance of lending government money. Look at the MP talking about losses. What did you do with the 33 billion cedis COVID money? What did you do with the over 80 billion cedis that was printed unlawfully under the tenure of Dr. Mahamia when he was the Aplanke head of the economic management team? Do you want to know who the agent for the company that printed illegal currency? The MP have told us that Sami Jenfi lost 1.7 billion cedis. No problem. What about the 10 billion cedis that has been pumped into the Ghanaian economy that has stabilized the city? They tell you that money translates into 22 billion cedis. Why don't you do the division and see? The MPP's US dollar USD to GC, the Ghana city rate, is 13. Even more that forex bureaus that are changing at 12.1 today. That's the nation records rate. That's from Kojo Chumbuafo. Tafa in Amra here. He says, good morning. Akosia has called Sami Jenfi a liar in your studio this morning, and you're allowed here. Akosia, who is this? Who is the number one liar in this country? Isn't it your blah, blah, blah? Who told Ghanaians that his biggest achievement as vice president of the people of the North was? Okay, so that's Tafa from Amra here. Now, JC Boakon says that, Moro, you see the reason why Ghanaians are suffering. Taxpayers' money are used to pay government officials to give us value for money, but the narrative is different now. The 1.7 billion loss in gold board was not reported and published by MPP headquarters as Wontumi TV. This is a report by IMF. Honorable Fuseini and the NDC should admit this and not create an erroneous impression in the minds of people to distort fact. Now, whether Sami Jenfi want to push the blame on Bank of Ghana that there is still a loss of 1.7 billion insult and unnecessary attacks won't save the NDC. Ghanaians are widely awake now. Best regards to Akosia Menu for the excellent presentation this morning. And then finally, Guy G says, so does the extortion shift not weaken what could otherwise have been a legitimate demand for answers from those who caused the losses? And why is BOJ missing in the quest for accountability? The current loss is bigger than before, and we should demand answers and find ways to forestall or minimize future losses. Whether the loss was caused by gold or the BOJ, it should concern to the government and the country at large. My regards to my beloved sister Akosia Menu Gaiji from Cantonment sends this message. And Sandy Sali, who says, Honorable Afenyo-Markin started it all with threat, insults, and unconstructive criticism. He gets a reply in equal measure, and suddenly he's been disrespectful. Well, disrespected, sorry. Now, Abena calls my young CEO liar many times on the show. Let's be serious. With all this noise, has Ghana Forex stabilized? Sami said he's waiting for a call from Parliament, but Afenyo chose to go public instead, and Abena and her fellow commentators are fine with that. Too much politics, too little to choose from. Ghana for you, Ghana. Good morning. And Monfrere Francis says, can Akosia please allow her colleague in the studio to flow? And he says, thank you very much. Peter P. Saki said this morning, Akosia is struggling with the subject discussion on the table. I'm sure she didn't come prepared. She should come down and settle in, please. Ni Apem from Akosia Rich. Ebo Bachman, that's my last message. It says, MPP's hypocrisy on the domestic gold purchase program is difficult to understand. When they were in government, they described similar cost as Forex liquidity support cost. What has changed? Why is the same phenomenon now being presented as a massive loss? You cannot change the name of the table simply because you have moved from one side to the other. The economy is stable and some people can't sleep. It's unfortunate. All right. So I guess that would have to end it here. But before I go, let me say congratulations. Yes. Let me say congratulations. No. Congratulations to Reverend Steve Wengam. I just saw this publication here. I think that is only proper that he's actually been re-elected the AG for the Ghana General Superintendent. And we want to wish him congrats on this re-election. May God continue to lift you, continue to make you successful. In fact, in today's Daily Guide, it says the Reverend Stephen, that's the man on your screen, Reverend Stephen Wenga. Inusah Wenga, he's been overwhelmingly re-elected as General Superintendent of Assemblies of God, Ghana. He secured nearly 90% of valid votes cast during the elections held at the church's 32nd Biennial General Council meeting at Gomafete in the Central Region. Reverend Wangam, who is also head pastor of Cedar Mountain Chapel, East Legon, polled 3,072 votes, representing 89.61%, to defeat Reverend Dr. Kwame B. Bansa of Charity Assemblies of God, Adenta, who obtained 6,432 votes, representing 10.39%. A total of 4,159 valid votes were cast for the position, with 7 rejected ballots, bringing total votes cast to 4,166. The victory returns Reverend Wengam to office for a second 4-year term. I've known this man since my days at City FM. He's a very good man. And so congrats, Reverend Inusah Wengam, on your re-election. We can only wish you well and keep sorry. Anyway, my name is Morado. Thanks for watching Good Morning. And unfortunately, we couldn't do Adamos. Tomorrow, hopefully, we should, because there's been some development as far as the Adamos resources matter is concerned. Honorable, you must be a happy man because you were of the opinion that perhaps the revocation should have been looked at again.
How do you know this? He didn't say this on the
he's an uncle. He's an uncle, so I know his thoughts on this matter.
Yes,
he's an uncle.
PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.